This is Between the Brackets, a Mediawiki podcast, episode 61, May 26th, 2020. Welcome to Between the Brackets. I'm Yaron Koren, and my guest is Will Kavanagh, also known as Mr. Woodhouse, who is the global community lead for the company Fandom, previously known as Wikia. When it comes to wiki farms, there's fandom and then there's everything else. It started out in 2004 as Wiki Cities, which was created by two of the main people from the Wikimedia Foundation at the time, Jimmy Wales and Angela Beasley, now known as Angela Beasley Starling. And as you might imagine, given their involvement, it runs on Mediawiki. In 2006, the name changed to Wikia, and in 2019, the name changed again to Fandom. Fandom is a massive site by any standard. It has hundreds of thousands of wikis with over 10 million articles between them all, and it's one of the top 100 most popular websites in the world. And I think that's without even counting the wiki farm Gamepedia, which Fandom bought in 2018. I hope to talk about all that and more with Will. So, Will, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Where do you live?
I live in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Great. I want to talk about how you got started. I would ask what you were doing before you started working at Fandom, but I think before that you were working at Gamepedia. So let me ask, what were you doing before you got involved with wikis at all?
So before I got involved in wikis, I was the gaming community manager for a failed social media startup called IMSI, which was started by a bunch of former Reddit employees trying to create a community platform for a kinder internet. It was a lot of fun. We learned a lot, but at the end of the day, there just wasn't a great market for it. And shortly after that, I joined up with Gamepedia as their community manager.
Yeah, okay. That's sad that there's no market for kindness on the internet. I think there's a parable there, a moral there. Were you involved with Reddit at all?
Yeah, I've been a moderator on Reddit for about 6 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, you're still doing it. Okay.
Yep, I moderate the Destiny subreddit, Fallout, Ark, and the granddaddy of them all, gaming.
Oh, okay. All of those other ones you mentioned are also video games or computer games? Yeah. I'm guessing you don't get involved with all of that unless you have a love for video games already.
Yeah, I've been pretty much all in on video games since my grandmother bought me a Game Boy Pocket for my birthday years and years ago, and I realized that I wanted to work in video games when I first got my hands on Roller Coaster Tycoon, and I had a teacher in high school that told me I should stop focusing on video games so much and focus on my grades a little bit more because video games were never going to pay the bills for me. And the irony of that is that not only do they pay the bills, but also I had my highest GPA that semester.
Oh, that's interesting. I want to talk about that actually. There's been people have talked about benefits of video games. There's a famous study maybe 10 years ago or something that showed that surgeons who play more video games were better at surgery or at least camera-assisted surgery. Do you feel like there are other benefits to video games besides just improving fine motor skills or and things like that?
Yeah, I think that certain types of video games lend themselves to different benefits. I remember that there was an article about how people are listing guild officer experience on resumes as they're applying for jobs, citing lessons that they've learned running teams in World of Warcraft, Guild Wars, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that a lot of Fortune 500 companies have seen that as valuable management experience. So there's definitely benefits to be found, if you have the right mind for it.
That makes sense. I mean, have you found that it helps you in terms of management or people skills and so forth?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And obviously, since we're talking now, obviously online games are very lockdown friendly, which is good.
Yeah, we've seen incredible spikes in communities, especially focused around games that have online components where people can connect. I was just reading a Twitter thread today about how an editorial board has completely ditched Zoom for their meetings and are meeting entirely inside the online component of Red Dead Redemption 2, which has its own set of challenges, including the fact that sometimes if you press the wrong button, you don't sit down at the meeting table, and instead you strangle one of your coworkers' virtual avatars.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, right. What's the danger of inflicting violence on others?
Yeah, I'm sure it's not super HR friendly.
So why do that as opposed to going with a standard conferencing tool?
I think it's just more to kind of feel like you're a little bit more connected. When you're on something like Zoom, there is the temptation to have something going on another screen. But when you have wolves and roving posses from other groups coming around with guns, you have to be a little bit more attentive to your meeting.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Oh, I'm imagining that there was some, safe space, quote unquote, where you could just meet and talk. But no, there's, random strangers can kill you during these.
I think there is some sort of, passive buff to be like, hey, don't shoot me. But it's the Wild West. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you get to experience what team meetings were like, in Deadwood in 1880 or something.
Exactly.
So yeah, there's been a spike, you said, in wiki usage around video games, or what about just video game playing in general?
Yeah, pretty much across the board in the industry, gaming activity is through the roof. A lot of people are going through games that they hadn't had a lot of time to get to before, so people are burning through their shameful backlogs of classics and should have been classics. We're seeing a lot of that in the industry, but we're also seeing a lot of people going after new games. Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Nintendo Switch is particularly popular. It's probably the number one game in the world right now, and it makes sense. It came out at the perfect time. Who doesn't want to escape lockdown to go to their own tropical island and build it up and invite all their friends?
Yeah, I'd heard of that game. I have no idea what's in it. I thought it was like a kids game, but I guess not.
No, it's pretty cool, and for the kids that do play it, it actually introduces them to concepts of capitalism, including the stock market, which is wild.
Oh, very interesting. Maybe I'll check it out. I've been playing a lot of chess online in the last few months, so I've been involved in increased gaming as well. But I'll look at that. That sounds very interesting. Speaking of that, what games in particular have you been playing these days?
I've been playing a lot of Fallout 76. It came out in late 2018. Wasn't very well received upon launch, but the team at Bethesda has done an incredible amount of work and just put out a massive update that basically fixes a lot of the problems with the game, and I've been sinking quite a bit of time into that game. It's quite a bit of fun.
Cool. So let's talk about wikis. I explained fandom briefly, but that leaves Gamepedia, which you're involved in a few ways, and I believe that's how you got you got into fandom in the first place. Megan Cutrafello from Gamepedia was actually on the show last year. I'm sure you know who that is.
Oh, yes.
So can you explain Gamepedia?
So Gamepedia is it's now basically fandom's little brother. It is a fully curated wiki platform, rather unlike fandom, which anyone can create a wiki. Gamepedia requires staff involvement to spin up a wiki, and every single wiki on Gamepedia has a professional wiki manager who helps theme it, who helps seed it with starter content, and helps with the management of the wiki once it's up and running. It's a little bit closer to a stock Mediawiki experience compared to Fandom. We run a custom skin called Hydra, which is basically a kind of a gaming version of what you would see on Wikipedia. And it's home to some of the most popular gaming wikis in the world, including the Minecraft wiki and the Terraria wiki. And Terraria is spiking considerably right now because they just had their final major content update go out over the weekend.
Oh, okay. So what were you doing at Gamepedia when you started working there?
I was the community manager there. Working on our user communication, helping to run a Slack server that we had for all of our top editors, running support, stuff like that.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong on the history here. I believe Gamepedia was started by a company called Curse, which was bought in 2016 by Twitch, which is a famous video game streaming company that's owned by Amazon.
Right.
And then in 2018, Curse, I guess, decided to get out of the wiki business, and Gamepedia was bought by Fandom, so you are no longer working for Amazon.
No, actually, Twitch sold Curse to Fandom. So we brought all of the Curse media properties with us, including Dungeons & Dragons Beyond, Mutthead, Futhead, and Strawpoll.
Oh, okay. So Fandom now owns non-wiki websites as well.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So speaking of Megan, from what I understand, she barely interacts with the people from the main Fandom, but you, of course, are employed by Fandom. How did that happen that you started working directly with the Fandom people?
So when we had the acquisition, I very quickly started working on some Fandom wikis as I was needed to help smooth out some community issues that other people didn't really have bandwidth for. And so pretty quickly I became working on both platforms as a gaming community manager. And then we reorganized a little bit into what we call the Wiki Growth Organization, where we had a bunch of different verticals focusing on different topics that have, heavy wiki usage. And shortly after that announcement, my job changed again, and I became the global community lead, working across the verticals and across the platforms.
Yeah. So what does that mean? What's the day-to-day work like as global community lead?
It's mostly representing the users in conversations with product and engineering, running point on user communications that are going to affect, more than one vertical. Before COVID struck and there was the global disruption to logistics, I was also in charge of overseeing our editor rewards program, where we send out, movie tickets, games, cool swag, Funko figurines, stuff like that to editors to thank them for all their hard work. We have a bunch of sweatshirts that I helped design that we got to send to some of our top editors, and we actually had an event in January, and it was really nice to see so many editors wearing those sweatshirts at the event.
Yeah, cool. Would you say you fight for the users?
I do. I'm
excellent.
Tron.
Yeah. Oh, you are Tron. Very okay. Very good. So that's pretty neat. That a lot of people have talked about gamification or just in general rewarding people who contribute a lot to the wikis, but you guys are actually doing that. Does that? I don't know. What do you think about? Does that help? Does it to identify and reward people, or is it more just? I don't know. I'm not sure what the question really is, but do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we did a study on the efficacy of it. and found that it is very effective at helping editors to stave off burnout. And
Okay.
also, find new areas that they want to edit in. Especially since somebody who plays one game might be interested in playing another game in the same genre. And so, if we go to them and say, oh, hey, you already have this game, but, we'd love to send you another game. Is there anything coming up you're interested in? And they say, oh, hey, I'd like to play Doom. I really enjoyed, the older Dooms, and I'd like Doom Eternal. And we'll send them Doom Eternal, and suddenly, they're putting in all these edits on the Doom wiki. We've seen that it basically creates the equivalent of more editors. We measure a quote unquote power user based on the number of monthly edits, and the editor rewards program has multiplied that number.
I see. So there presumably are people who are, in part at least, motivated by wanting to reach the next level of whatever you want to call it, not acceptance. I don't know.
It's more that it allows us to leverage some of the capital we have to give people access to more experiences, and then they end up, writing about those experiences on the wikis. So we'll send people to, the first night showings for a movie that they're excited about, and they'll end up writing on that wiki. They're under no obligation to do so. It's just thanking them for all their hard work.
Right.
But 9 times out of 10 they end up editing about the subject.
Yeah. That's a nice positive feedback thing in both senses of the word. One thing that sometimes comes up when people talk about gamification is they want to avoid gaming the system. So, if you just reward a huge number of edits, then you run the risk that someone is just going to go, keep adding a period and deleting a period over and over again. Has that happened? Has anyone ever tried to do that?
We've seen that concern, and certainly with some of our gamification features, especially on Gamepedia, which has a pretty robust achievement system, we've seen people gaming for achievements, which makes sense because, that's been such a successful carrot in the gaming world, with Xbox and PlayStation and now Steam all having, robust achievement systems. But we look more at their holistic contributions, and look at the quality of what they're providing rather than the quantity. Anyone can set up a bot to change the spacing on every article, and say, oh, hey, I should be editor of the month.
Right.
But when we get down to the nitty gritty and we see that you have 50,000 edits in the past month and all of them are under 7 bytes, it's like, well, we're going to dig in on some of those edits. So we're really looking to the people that aren't just editing, but they're making a positive impact on their community. So somebody might not be the most prolific editor, but they're a great leader, or they're a great admin, or they help out on one of our spam prevention teams, or they've developed a really cool bot that helps other wiki teams to keep track of vandalism through Discord and other services like that. Our first editor of the year on Gamepedia actually works for us now, because he developed incredible tools on his own that helped people to access wikis in new ways.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, that was. I guess that was part of my question, was whether you just have some software to determine who are the top editors, or if there's a human involvement in that. But
no, it's all manual. It's all manual review by our wiki manager teams and our community teams and our wiki leads, and looking at who stands out to you, who made a great contribution lately, who's somebody that has been here for years and making great contributions, but maybe they're not around as much, and we want to thank them for all those hard years. Maybe we're not going to get maybe they're not going to edit ever again because what they're interested in is done. Like maybe they were only interested in the Game of Thrones TV show, and now that's done, and they never need to edit another thing again. But we're still going to send them something for all their years of hard work.
Yeah, that's great. So you, having worked at both Gamepedia and Fandom, is there a difference in the culture that you noticed between the two? I guess in terms of both corporate culture and the user community.
Kind of really minor differences. At the end of the day, we're all really passionate fans of what we're talking about. So that made bringing the two companies together really easy, in a sense, because we all want the same thing. We all want to make the best wiki platform for our users, and we all want to celebrate what makes us a fan. And it starts at the top. Our CEO loves to wear his Star Trek uniform to company meetings, and
I hope it's not red.
It is not. He's got a command yellow.
Oh, very good.
And we really celebrate what it means to be a fan, and we celebrate service to our users and getting to express their fandoms.
Yeah. Have you had to learn, about pop culture items that you didn't really know about, 90s sitcoms or whatever it is?
Oh no, I'm the trivia master at the company. We do weekly trivia via email, and I have only missed 2 questions in the past 6 weeks or so.
Oh wow, okay. So you knew about all that stuff already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. On Fandom and Gamepedia, what % of the wikis are in English versus other languages? Do you know?
If I had to take a guess, I'd say it's probably 75% English.
Yeah.
Which is, not to say that the non-English wikis, aren't significant to us. We think about their needs a lot. In particular with, a big project we're working on, the Unified Community Platform. It's adding mobile editing to Fandom as a whole for the first time, which super serves our non-English communities, which are more likely to be mobile dependent. One of the things that I like to talk about the most when we talk about mobile editing is that Spanish-speaking internet users, 67% of them are mobile primary for connecting to the internet, which is significantly higher than their English primary counterparts. Yeah. So having mobile editing allows us to super serve those communities by giving them access to a more robust editing experience.
Yeah. So as far as language support, is it generally that a non-English wiki will cover the same topic as an existing English language wiki, or there's going to be a group of languages for one topic?
It's a mix. Some things it's, hey, there really isn't an English audience for what they're covering, and so it'll just be, that non-English wiki that's covering the topic. But some of them it'll be, hey, it's a network of interconnected wikis based on language. Like Wikipedia has so many, non-English variants that are all interconnected.
That's the Star Wars one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah. One of your favorite wikis.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I remember hearing about that back when I attended Wikimania in, I want to say 2006. There was somebody there from Wikipedia who was talking about it. So when there's more than one language wiki for the same topic, like on Wikipedia, is there any connection between them, or are they all just independent?
Some wiki networks do it differently than others. For example, on Gamepedia, the Minecraft wikis are all interconnected with a shared leadership at the top, which is a really great, system. And it's become a really, it sets a new industry standard for excellence. But it doesn't work for everyone. Best practices are just that, they're practices, and best doesn't mean all.
Yeah, it's up to the what would you call them? Community managers or wiki admins
managers, wiki admins, wiki guardians, depending on which platform you're on.
Yeah. So you mentioned this unified community platform project, which I'm very interested to talk about. I guess also known as UCP. Can you explain what it is?
Yeah, so the UCP is the most ambitious project in the company's history. What we're doing is creating an entirely new code base based on a modern version of Mediawiki, upon which all fandom, wikia.org, and Gamepedia wikis in good standing will all migrate to. It'll allow us to have, just one code base to maintain, which, allows us to be a lot more agile in how we deliver new features, in how we deliver fixes, in how we scale our platform, and really combine the best of both worlds in terms of feature sets.
Yeah. So there's going to be a new platform, and also all the Gamepedia wikis will move on to fandom.com. Is that also part of it?
So it's just the code base. The Gamepedia wikis will still be Gamepedia wikis as they move over. They'll still have their unique look and feel, at least in phase 1. In phase 2, we're going to a unified look and feel that we're just starting to understand a little bit more about, using a lot of user feedback, a lot of explorations about what we have on our platforms, what people have on other platforms, and also doing a lot of user experience research with people who contribute to the site, with people who consume the site, and allowing us to have a really modern wiki platform that can serve as a foundation for the future of our communities.
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to get into the technical aspects of that, but before that, I assume there's a lot of video games that have wikis on both Fandom and Gamepedia. What's going to happen with those once everything is on the same platform? Will they get merged?
So right now we have a program that we call Project Crossover, which identifies those conflicts and encourages the wiki teams to work together and find a final destination for all of their content.
Yeah.
It's been incredibly successful. We have successfully crossed over hundreds of wikis so far.
Oh, wow.
And including, two of the biggest conflicts that we had between our platforms, which were the Fallout wikis and the World of Warcraft wikis. Both of which split because, one group wanted to stay on Fandom or then Wikia, and another group wanted to move. And so we've seen the reunification of those communities. It's been really great.
I get it. Okay. You're saying the Gamepedia wikis started off as Fandom content anyway, so it's like a reconciliation or something.
Yep. And interestingly enough, the Fallout community decided to return to Fandom, and the Warcraft community decided to live on Gamepedia.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's hasn't really been one-sided. It's just been what's best for the community and what makes the most sense for their content and where the contributors are.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's great. So onto the software stuff. For a long time, Wikia and WikiHow well, I guess I should say, for a long time, Fandom and WikiHow were the two examples I always had for Mediawiki sites that had so many customizations and custom extensions that they were sort of perpetually stuck on old versions. The WikiHow people have worked on that, and they're now pretty much up to date. And I guess Fandom is headed in that direction too.
Yeah, so the UCP will take us to 133, which we're really excited about. It's a huge jump for Fandom coming from 119. We're really excited about it. There's over 1 million lines of custom code that we're ripping out to make this happen, and we can't overexpress how much some of our power users are excited for this change.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So Mediawiki 119 is from, I don't even know when.
I think it's 2012.
Oh, okay. Gosh. Yeah. 8-year-old software that there's been a ton of customizations to. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it makes sense to go through every customization that Fandom had or has to Mediawiki, but what are some of the biggest features you had to deal with updating or replacing in working on this UCP project?
So the three biggest ones are our article comments system, our message wall system, and our forum system. They're all based on the same code, which is, very highly customized and built into the core of our Mediawiki install, which, is one of the things that makes upgrading so difficult, and it's why we're building an entirely new code base and migrating content rather than trying to update the old code base.
Right.
So for message wall and for article comments, we've had to completely rebuild that functionality. Message wall, 2.0 as is being referred to, is living on technology we call feeds, which is also known as discussions. It's separate from Mediawiki, lives alongside the wiki. It allows us to keep that maintained while also not having to touch core Mediawiki too much, because we're trying to avoid some of the things that made the an update to the old code base kind of not really feasible. Article comments is similarly being redone, and we are having a release of that fairly soon. And then for forums, we're sunsetting forums. We're going to migrate the old forums content onto discussions, and we're making some improvements to discussions based on feedback that we have from forums users who think that, discussions isn't going to meet their needs, and quite frankly, they're right. A lot of communities have developed their own things that rely pretty heavily on some of the things that forums has that discussions doesn't. And so, we're not being blind to that. We're talking to those communities. We're, experiencing what they have. And being very patient, being very deliberate, and figuring out what are the changes that we can make to make things better for those communities. So it's pretty exciting because it allows us to get closer to what the foundation is doing in terms of a core Mediawiki experience, and then build everything that makes Fandom unique around that so that we can upgrade in the future without a lot of hassle.
Yeah. Well, the foundation, you mean the Wikimedia Foundation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So you listed 4 things that sort of sound like one another. Message wall, article comments, forums, and discussion. Mm-hmm. Can you explain those 4 things, which I guess will now be 3 things?
Sure. So forums is exactly what it sounds like. It's a pretty traditional message board. Folks that are kind of the older internet generation will recognize them as pretty early internet, design with, boards and topics and threads and whole nine yards. Discussions is a more modern version of that kind of same use case. Living in a social media world with a little bit more rich content rather than being text focused. We developed it ourselves, and it lives separately from Mediawiki, so it's we can update it without having to touch the core wiki code base, which is nice.
Yeah.
Message wall is pretty much exactly what you would see on Facebook. It's on your profile, it's your wall, people go and they leave you a message and other people can interact with it. So it's a great user to user communication tool, especially for moderation. So if somebody is not conforming to your community rules, you can go and give them a warning on their message wall and they'll get a notification for it.
Yeah, okay. And that replaces the core Mediawiki talk pages?
It does. But we allow communities to toggle it off if they'd like to return to the core talk page experience.
Yeah, okay.
And then article comments lives on individual article pages. It basically allows you to have a lot of the same discussions that you'd be having on an article talk page, but within the page itself, down at the bottom. And so it acts similar to what you would see on a blog, where you have those discus comments at the bottom.
Right, yeah. Or news articles and that kind of thing.
Exactly. And it allows you to have a threaded conversation similar to that. And people can, discuss the content of the article. They can provide suggestions for improvements. They can, debate some of the claims that are made, debate the sources that are being used. In some communities, we've seen that article comments ends up being, almost like a mini forum dedicated to that particular topic that's covered on the page. Right. So, we look a lot at some of the unique use cases that people have when we're, making changes to these features.
Yeah, okay. So have there been any challenges in updating all of those things to get them to work with the latest version of Mediawiki?
There's been a little bit of a challenge in just, some of these things we're building for the first time since, they were built on Mediawiki, and getting them to run on a different type of solution introduces its own bugs, introduces its own quirks, a lot of things that we're learning for the first time as we, tinker around with this modern version. We spent 7 or 8 years squashing all the bugs that were related to our 119 install, and now we're discovering the new bugs with the 133 install.
Right.
So it's we have hundreds of years of wiki experience in the team that we've assembled that's working on this project. So there's a lot of intelligence and a lot of institutional knowledge in the room, but at the same time, a lot of us are looking at some of these problems for the first time. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. All the planning and thought that has to go into discussions in various forms, not forums, between users. It seems to sort of mirror the difficulties that the Wikimedia Foundation has had with talk page discussions. I don't know if you know, but they've had now 2 failed attempts to create a threaded discussion system that could be used on Wikipedia. There was Liquid Threads, and then there was Flow, which is now called Structured Discussions. Mm-hmm. Actually, you could say there were 3 failed attempts because there have been 2 different versions of Liquid Threads. So that's something like 10 plus years now of failed attempts to create a good interface for talk page discussions. Yeah, it just seems like it's a very difficult problem to create a discussion system for wikis that's both easy to use for beginners, but also flexible enough for power users and not annoying to power users, maybe is the better way to describe it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Part of it is, it's always hard to please everyone, especially when a lot of people are used to the way that things have been.
Right.
Probably the best analogy for us is the way that Reddit has been updating their site. They have new Reddit and old Reddit running side by side, with trying to get more and more people to move to new Reddit, and they're seeing that as they recreate functionality on new Reddit that people have been using for years and years on old Reddit, that some of it is, hey, this is objectively bad, and some of it is, all right, it might be good, but I've been using this thing for 7 years and I don't like this change. For me, I was firmly in that second camp for a while, with moderator mail. I loved the old mod mail. It was, it was really classic. You had to hack it to get threaded responses, and the new moderator mail is very modern, but it's also a very robust tool, and eventually I came around, and I like it better now. So part of it is it's hard to get a tool that people like to be modern without destroying something that they really loved, and are really used to. And so it's kind of finding the right balance of, functionality, but also how familiar does this feel to you? How well does that quote unquote muscle memory translate to this new tool?
Yeah. Okay. Did you guys look into the Wikimedia Foundation solution of flow / structured discussions at all?
I think we took a look at it. We have a couple different teams that are in communication with their foundation counterparts. There is a level of communication there between the two groups. At the end of the day, we already have feeds in-house, and so it made sense for us to adapt Message Wall over to that technology, especially because there are entire communities where the discussion side of things that also runs on the feeds tech is a very vibrant community. So making trying to unify those two worlds into one is definitely a goal we have.
Yeah. So speaking of feeds, there's another feature you didn't mention called Wiki Activity, or the activity feed. I don't know how big a deal that is, but I saw it mentioned. What is that?
So Wiki Activity is also known as the My Home extension. It's a custom bit of functionality we created as sort of a light version of recent changes. And the goal of that feature was to give an at-a-glance look to newer users to see where the changes are being made on their wiki without kind of overloading them with recent changes, and see if that encourages people to dive in and start making edits. And we never saw any evidence that it did. And so we made the decision that we weren't going to port that custom functionality over. And we were just going to go with recent changes because there had been so many improvements to that system by the foundation in the time between 119 and 133.
Right.
And what we learned after we released the UCP for new wiki creation is that admins were using Wiki Activity to really quickly find vandalism. So they were using this tool for something that we hadn't intended it for, and that removing it was changing their workflow. So it's a piece of feedback that we've been watching very closely, and seeing, hey, does recent changes work for them? Can we make it so that it works for them? Or is this something where we're going to need to find a better solution for at-a-glance moderation?
Yeah.
So it's a really tricky situation, and it's hard to find use cases that you're not tracking for, and that your tracking doesn't surface. So it's hard to find what you're not looking for.
Well, yeah, sure. So I mean, is that still an ongoing?
Yeah, it's still an ongoing investigation.
Yeah.
As we work on stuff, and right now we're still in the phase where we only have brand new wikis on the UCP, and we're shortly going to get into the first phase of migrations of legacy content onto the new platform. So we want to see how the feedback evolves, how the feedback if it stays the same, and guide our next steps with that.
Yeah, so I was going to ask about that. How many wikis are on the UCP already?
It's a few thousand.
Okay.
Yeah, so right now when on March 11th, we flipped the switch, and unless you're staff using a very specific process, all new wikis created on Fandom only go through the UCP. That's just so that we can understand how the platform's working, and also so that we're not creating more work for ourselves with migration at the back end. It also allows us to use a new wiki creation flow, which is a little bit inspired from Gamepedia. It's a nice meet in the middle between the two wiki creation flows we had before, where Gamepedia was entirely curated and Fandom was entirely, hey, create a wiki, do whatever you want. Now we check against existing wikis when you're starting your wiki, and if it finds a match, we encourage you to join that rather than create your own. We have some exceptions to that process, like, hey, if you're, if there's a wiki out there that doesn't cover fan-generated content or fanon, and it just wants to look at canon sources, then you can create a wiki in that same IP for fanon.
Okay.
But if it's a one-to-one overlap, or if there's too much of an overlap, we're going to delete the wiki, and we're going to encourage you to go back to the other one, because it makes the most sense, and it's the most community-focused approach to have the concentration of all those efforts into the wiki that exists.
Yeah. I didn't actually realize that you can just go to Fandom or Gamepedia for that matter and just create your own subdomain. I thought you had to request or something and then it got reviewed or whatever it is.
You do on Gamepedia.
Oh, okay.
But we've frozen that process during the UCP.
Yeah.
And so the only wikis that we're creating are either language variants of existing Gamepedia wikis or Fandom wikis, which exist in the new Fandom wiki creation process.
Yeah. But anyone can just go and create a subdomain. I mean, there's a good chance it'll get deleted unless it's something valid. But
as long as it doesn't overlap with something that we have, and or does overlap but meets one of the exceptions, you're fair game.
Well, I mean, can somebody just create a wiki about their house or something?
Sure.
Oh, and it won't get deleted?
If you have like some interesting project that you're doing on your house, like say you're, converting your house into a permanent haunted house, and you want to document everything about your haunted house, go for it.
Oh wow, okay, I had no idea.
Yeah, we have stuff for tabletop campaigns. We have stuff for, I think we have a couple of neighborhood wikis. Stuff like that. We have a lot of really interesting stuff. I created a wiki for some content creators that I follow that have a company called Rare Drop. And so we created a wiki for them that documents what they do on Twitch and Mixer and their charity work and stuff like that. So they have their own wiki.
Oh, wow. Cool. And of course, it's all free.
All's free.
Yeah. Do you have any sense for this whole project, for when it'll be complete? Is there any general timeline for when all the wikis will move over to the UCP?
This year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, we're gearing up to start the migrations, and we're doing a batch to start off to understand how those wikis perform on the new platform. They should be running faster. Newer software, better optimization.
Right.
We're hoping to get some nice SEO improvements. We've got the new editor from the foundation. We've got the 2017 editor running.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're talking about visual editor?
Which we're really excited about. And so once we have a better understanding of the data, we'll move on to adding more and more wikis depending on the extensions that they need to run, because we currently don't have the full extension set from the legacy platforms on the new platform yet, but we're adding more and more about twice a week in terms of releases, and that cadence will continue to accelerate.
Yeah.
And eventually everyone's going to be on UCP. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Are you bracing for an onslaught of feedback, comments, that kind of thing, in each of these waves of migrations?
I am in a constant state of bracing.
Okay. Oh, you're constant state of bracing. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right. There must be a lot of feedback already.
There's been a lot of feedback. A lot of folks don't realize that, hey, this is a really important thing that we need to do. It's good for the future of the communities. One of our heads of engineering likes to say, hey, if we didn't give a damn, we wouldn't be doing this.
Right.
This is how we can best serve our communities, is to give them modern tools on a modern platform so that they can operate in the future. That they can operate well, so that they scale well as the internet evolves. And some folks are just like, hey, I don't care about that because you're changing things. And those are the folks that I'm probably never going to be able to convince. And that's okay. I mean, change is scary, and I'm living proof that I hate it when some of the things that I love change. Like I'm really upset that Google Play Music is shutting down this summer and everything's getting moved to YouTube Music, because I don't like YouTube Music. But I understand why Google's doing it. So it's decisions that have to be made. And our aim is to provide a better experience in the long run, and allowing us to innovate. Not having to reverse engineer features that the foundation is putting into releases and get it to work on our old platform. That allows us to go do new content types. One of those things that we're looking to do is let's build a robust map system, so that all these awesome gaming communities and fantasy communities that have really strong world building, they can put out a map and say, hey, you can explore this map, and can the map link to different parts of the wikis and stuff like that. That's one of the things that we're looking at. We're looking at can we build a good skill tree system that can also work for family trees? Things like Game of Thrones, where family trees are really important to the story. They're having to use kind of hack together solutions to display that data on the wiki, and could we provide them with a better solution that works with the wiki? Those are the types of things that the UCP allows us to go out and pursue.
Yeah, you're talking about using the new what's it called? I guess content handler system in Mediawiki, where you can have things not just in wiki text, have XML or whatever it is to store structured data.
I'm sure we'd look at that. I don't get into the technical nitty-gritty,
okay.
Because there are people that are way smarter than me that get paid to do that, while I handle the communications in the community.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, what has been the reaction from users so far? You said that a lot of power users were happy with the with the changes?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I keep going back to is that getting us a more up-to-date Mediawiki install has been either the number one most requested explicit ask, or has been at the root of a related ask, and that ends up being the top requested thing in the past 5 years with fandom. So for people that have been around who know the system inside and out, this is exactly what they've been asking for, and we're seeing that those folks are really excited about it, because it means that they're getting new tools, they're getting things that they've envied on Wikipedia, they're getting things that they've envied on Gamepedia, and we're getting to deliver those features to them, and we'll be able to stay modern. For some folks that don't have the benefit of that context, it seems pretty scary, especially for folks that maybe just registered last year, and they found a community that they like, and now they're reading that we're changing the platform that they've gotten used to. And I fully understand that that's scary.
Right.
You know, it's we're seeing it more and more with different platforms as they, you know, change layouts, as they change features. And, you know, I get that on the face of it, it looks like it sucks. But the end result is more tools. The end result is better support. It's faster cadence. It's a lot of things that end up being great.
Sure.
And the whole of what we're delivering is a better experience for all of our users.
Yeah, and if it frees up your developers to work on more interesting features rather than just, you know,
And
I don't
what's
know.
really nice is being on a more modern version of Mediawiki means that we're suddenly compatible with a lot more extensions.
Well, right. Yeah. So, well, I want to ask about that, but what do you think about the current state of the Mediawiki user interface? There have been, you know, there's a relatively new look and feel to it, and there's kind of a slicker approach on pages like recent changes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, does that? Yeah,
I really like it. I think it brings in a lot of the best practices in UX design that you're seeing some, you know, newer companies embrace. I really like recent changes because I think it's a really powerful tool. I love what they've done with it. There are certainly some ways that it could be improved, especially for that at-a-glance moderation that I mentioned. And, you know, where we do find improvements to make in Core Mediawiki, we're going to upstream them. You know, our engineering leads are in contact with their counterparts at the foundation, and, you know, when we find improvements for the core, we're going to be sending them along so that everyone can benefit in future releases.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that, the relationship between fandom and the Wikimedia Foundation, which you've talked about. I mean, there's already a category on MediaWiki.org that's called Extensions by Wikia, and I looked at it. It lists 25 extensions, which sounds like a lot, but I think that's misleading because I think a lot of those extensions are outdated or no longer used at fandom, and actually even the name of the category is out of date, of course. So yeah, I think most of the extensions that you have now on fandom don't have a page on MediaWiki.org, and often not anywhere, and they're hosted on GitHub and not the Wikimedia Git repository. So are there plans, or is there at least a desire to integrate more closely into the standard MediaWiki system and community?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at ways that we can leverage some of the custom work that we're doing outside of the core experience in the form of extensions and side-by-side systems. Mostly what we're really committing to in the short term is, as we're putting together this new platform and seeing what the modern version of Mediawiki can do, is that when we do find opportunities to improve, that we're going to make sure that we pass it along.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about data structure, which also ties into extensions. A lot of the wikis on Gamepedia, especially the biggest wikis, make pretty heavy use of the Cargo and Scribunto extensions. Scribunto, that's the one that lets you define Lua modules for anyone who's listening. And I think a lot of the current use of those two extensions is the work of Megan Cutterfellow. We talked a lot about that when she was on the podcast and all the pretty amazing things they've been able to do with the software. And conversely, on fandom, there's, I think, a few of the wikis that still use Semantic Mediawiki, although it used to be a bigger deal there. What's going to happen with all of those? Do you know?
So there's actually pretty fun backstory to why the two platforms use different solutions for their semantic data. And that goes back to the release of The Last Jedi a few years back. We have the official wiki for Path of Exile, which is a very popular adventure game, which has a ton of customization in both player abilities and itemization. And they were making heavy use of Semantic Mediawiki, so much so that a couple of changes crashed the entire Gamepedia network as I was sitting down in the theater to see the first showing of The Last Jedi.
Oh, no.
And so I had to go onto Reddit as, lights are coming down, they're starting to play trailers, and calm down the Path of Exile subreddit. I'm like, hey, here's what happened. Hey, we're trying to fix this. And so as a result, we mandated that everyone on Gamepedia needed to move to Cargo.
Okay.
There has not been a similar mandate on fandom, mostly because probably the legacy platform. But we are not going to be changing our policy on Semantic Mediawiki, at least in the near term, which is that the wikis that have it can keep it, but we're not adding it to new wikis. Semantic data is important, but we need to find a way that's scalable, because with 400,000 wikis, if they all had Semantic Mediawiki, I think we'd bring down the entire internet.
Oh, I thought you were going to say bring down the entire website, but no, the entire internet.
No, the power of that many wikis running SMW would be wild. It's a great tool to have, and it's incredible to see what people can do with it. But it is an expensive tool in terms of what it does to the servers and what it does in terms of calls and such.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
so
yeah.
It's something we have to solve for, and moving to the UCP and freeing up those development teams, it makes it something that we can put on our list.
Wait. Well, what do you mean? What was that last thing? What's the list?
Oh, in terms of things that we want to do after the UCP, figure out what makes sense for the for data and structured data.
Yeah, I get it. So how does it work now if a wiki moves onto the UCP or a new wiki comes up? Do they have any say, or can they make any requests as to which extensions they get?
So we have the ability for admins to enable certain things straight from their admin dashboard. Some things have to be enabled by a staff user or a wiki manager. And a lot of the top wikis on fandom have an assigned wiki manager with all those elevated privileges. So that's how we're handling a lot of extension turn on. For existing wikis that are coming over, they will default to having the extensions that they already have turned on as soon as they get over with all of their content.
Yeah, okay. Except for the extensions that are no longer
correct
supported.
And in those cases, we're looking for solution parity with either modern extensions that fit the same bill, or in some cases, the foundation has simply just absorbed that functionality in a more modern release.
Yeah, right. How many? What does that look like? The dashboard? I mean, how many extensions can people, at least theoretically, activate?
It's pretty limited right now because we're in an earlier state, and it's also hard for me to say exactly because I've got God mode.
Okay, right.
I can just see very long, expansive list, including some toggles for things that haven't been even activated yet.
Yeah. Okay.
But so yeah, we're giving we're giving admins a little bit of freedom there. That's where they can go in and decide whether they want message wall or talk pages. That'll be where they can decide on some other things that will affect how their community engages.
Yeah.
So it's something that we want to look at more. Last year we expanded the dashboard with an admin analytics tool. So giving admins more tools from that dashboard is something that we definitely want to do in the future.
Yeah, you mean analytics like seeing site usage?
Oh yeah,
hits.
Looking at
right.
Page views, uniques, what device type they're coming in from, where they're geolocated, stuff like that. And it's been great for users to understand their communities better.
Yeah, that's got to be really really useful for admins to see that kind of thing, and figure out what's the content people are interested in, where in the world are people coming from, and all that kind of stuff. Cool. I think that's I think that was all my questions. Is there anything else you want to say? Yeah.
For people who are bored during the crisis, definitely come check out some wikis, see if there's games and shows and movies that you'd be interested in. We have a pretty cool series that we started alongside the crisis called Hey Fandom, where we have live Q&A with people that are responsible for your favorite movies and TV shows.
Oh, wow.
Like tomorrow we have Ben Schwartz from Parks and Rec and Space Force. He was also Sonic in the recent Sonic movie.
Right.
We had the showrunner for She-Ra last week. And, we have cool stuff like that we have going on outside of the wikis.
Oh, cool. That's sort of your equivalent of the Reddit Ask Me Anything.
Yeah, basically.
Thing. Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah, it's really cool that fandom has that kind of presence in the culture, in the entertainment world, that you can, it's not just a one-sided relationship.
Yeah, we have great relationships with a lot of studios and publishers and whatnot. We have our official wiki program that, we get badging and promotion from the folks responsible for the IP, and they get a great spot to direct their fans for discussions and fan content. So we have that relationship with Netflix for the Witcher series. Like I mentioned, we have that with Path of Exile, Terraria, a lot of other great properties.
Yeah. Cool. That sounds really exciting. Obviously, there's a silver lining to the cloud that we're in now, which is that people are getting to enjoy more of these cultural properties, and it's also it's great to hear that you're improving the technical side of fandom, and it's also great to hear from, as someone from the so-called Mediawiki community, it's great to hear that fandom is, I guess you could say, rejoining the Mediawiki or Wikimedia community. Would you say that's an accurate statement, or is that going too far, that you never really left?
I'd say we never really left, but we're renewing our commitment to the broader community.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's really going to be helpful, mutually helpful to both sides of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Yeah. So if you're considering creating a new wiki, you should definitely consider Fandom. And if you're already on Fandom, you're going to be seeing a lot of great changes coming up. So that's cool. So yeah, I think that's it. Will, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And this has been another episode of Between the Brackets. I want to again thank my guest, Will Kavanagh, aka Mr. Woodhouse of Fandom, formerly known as Wikia. Thanks to all of you for listening. Stay safe, stay productive, and I'll see you next time.